Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Hello and welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I hope the sun is shining. I hope you're feeling good. I hope you had a good week, spreading some positive vibes. I'm back to bring you more feel-good, positive stories to hopefully brighten your day or maybe turn it around. That's all I can hope for if you're having a crappy day and you listen to this and it just kind of perks your day up a little bit. Sharing these stories with you definitely perks my day up, and it's just a good little break from all the chaotic news that we are always reading these days. So I'm here for some positive news, which I am going to start out with something about COVID-19 today, but I do want to start with it's an very optimistic. It is the COVID-19 statistics for most of the numbers of U.S. states that have been reported in May. And they're great. I promise. I wouldn't be sharing these statistics if it wasn't super optimistic and positive. So let's start. So some of, we all know that it's kind of slowly, maybe kind of starting to go back to normal, very, very slowly. But the CDC reports large decreases in mortality rates and hospitalizations during April and May throughout most of the U.S. So there was a White House press briefing just this past week, and the Coronavirus Task Force Coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, basically just shared some pretty positive data from these graphs and these charts, basically based on the data from the Centers for Disease Control. So there has been, this dramatic decline of COVID-19 deaths and hospitalizations, and there has been an increase in testing, especially very high burden states, kind of like New York. So I guess nationwide, there has been more than a 50% decline in new hospitalizations, across the U.S. The U.S. is below the baseline for normal influenza-like symptoms that are normally reported in emergency rooms nationwide. So, comparing the week of May 16th compared to March 28th, that week, the vast majority of the U.S. have really reported reductions of the number of cases for influenza-like illness. So that's pretty great. They kind of have pictures on their website comparing, the amount of the difference between March and, May, which I wish I could just show you these pictures through this podcast, but obviously I can't. So head over to our, social media and I'll be sure to post them up over there for you so you can take a look there. But regarding to all this testing, they say that all the 50 states have reached 2% testing, of the population, which was the desired number for the CDC. Many states have over 4% testing. So they just say that we are encouraged by the progress that many of the governors and states have made in their testing of their population. So the federal government has encouraged 100% of testing in local nursing homes, as well. So very positive. You can actually see a dramatic decline across the states, and New York City just 6 weeks ago at 40% is now at 10%. So that's really positive. Great numbers, I have to say. You can see the decrease across various age ranges as well for visits to doctors after influenza-like symptoms. So those have all go down. 42 states are now have less than 10% tested positive. The top 3 states with the largest percent testing positive, basically so you can make decisions about social distancing, are, kind of sports and all those types of gatherings and things that we still have to make those tough decisions on of, keeping our social distancing. But they say that Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia are the largest percent testing positive. So maybe don't head over there. Also, Nebraska, Chicago, Wisconsin, and Minnesota are all higher than average for numbers of testing positive, but they all are under 20%. Just 4 weeks ago, half of the United States was over 20%. So many regions have shown vast improvement. So that's why I wanted to start off with a little bit of COVID-19 positivity. Now, my next story I have for you is pretty cool. They are talking about sending the first woman up to the moon next to the next man as well, but this is pretty cool. So, NASA, alongside a number of partnering space agencies from all around the world, have announced a new set of international agreements that will help to govern what they say, a safe, peaceful, and prosperous future of space exploration. So, they just released the Artemis Accords. So it's the latest development of the Artemis program, through basically the agency vows to send the first woman and the next man to the moon by 2024. Pretty cool. So NASA hopes that Accords will better allow it to work with international partners to conduct a human mission to Mars as well. Pretty interesting, I have to say. So Jim Burdenston, he is the NASA administrator, and he says it's a new dawn for space exploration. Today I'm honored to announce the Artemis Accords agreements, establishing a shared version and set of principles for all international partners that join in humanity's return to the moon. We go together. Pretty interesting. The core values that are basically in the Accords expand on the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. So this includes the principle that space exploration should be done for peaceful purposes, and that the U.S. and its partner nations must be transparent in their practices, and they should strive to build interpersonal systems to information that can be exchanged and shared between nations. So this program also aims to protect historical sites and artifacts beyond the bounds of our planet, of course. Basically much the same way that heritage sites on Earth are protected by law. So they're going to kind of have the same thing for space, I guess. So these kind of include artifacts that are left behind during the moon landings of Apollo program of 1969 to 1972. The international space agencies that join NASA in the Artemis program will do so by executing Artemis Accords agreements, which will basically describe a shared version for principles that are grounded in the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 to create a safe and transparent environment with facilities, exploration, science, and commercial activities for all humanity to enjoy. That was a statement from NASA itself, and the international partners that have signed on to Accords include the Canadian Space Agency, European Space Agency, the Russian Space Agency, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. So pretty cool. They're all coming together. The Accords marks one of the most significant accomplishments this far of the largest Artemis program that was announced back in 2019. So this program involves Orion spacecraft, Gateway and Space Launch Rocket System, the SLS they call it. So the SLS rocket will be used to send Orion with astronauts and large cargo on board to the moon. Just I don't know why, but speaking of going, just talking about going to the moon just makes me excited. I know I'm not going to the moon, but it's just I'm excited for somebody else to be going to the moon. But I guess unlike previous spacecraft, most of the only supportive short-term missions, the Orion will dock at the Gateway. So it's a spaceship that will go into orbit around the moon and be used as a lunar outpost. So about 250,000 miles from Earth. The Gateway will allow easier access to the entire surfaces of the moon and potentially deep space exploration. So stay tuned for who's being sent out to the moon by 2024. Like I said, I don't know why. Just talking about the moon gets me excited. I know I'll probably never end up there. I say probably like it's a possibility, but I'm just saying, I think it's it's super exciting that they're sending the first woman to the moon and they're doing lots more with it. So I'm excited to learn about more information to do with that. But now I want to share a story with you about a 6-year-old boy's dream coming true because a FedEx driver helped him to exchange gifts with Tony Hawk. Pretty interesting story. So this little boy, he got to exchange gifts. Tony Hawk is his skateboarding hero. And I guess this FedEx driver basically went above and beyond of his duty. Like I hear so many FedEx drivers do. But this delivery driver, was going through Georgia on his daily route last week, and he saw this little kid chasing after the mail truck. And his name is Cooper Morgan. He's only 6 years old, and he flagged him down so he could ask him to deliver a gift to Tony Hawk. So this gift was a worn-out skateboard deck that Tony Hawk's name written in the back marker on the end of the board, and it had Cooper's name written on the other. And this board was not properly packaged or addressed. He basically just told the FedEx driver, he said, "Get this to Tony Hawk from me. Tell him it's from Cooper." My heart. But he didn't want to disappoint little Cooper. So he took a chance on the internet and posted a video actually to his TikTok channel explaining the predicament that this little 6-year-old boy put him in. A few hours later, after uploading this post, he checked his phone and he was, leave it to social media. He was absolutely amazed with the flood of notifications from social media users that were tagging Tony Hawk in it and just praising this FedEx driver for his adorable gesture and actually trying to get the skateboard to Tony Hawk. So it gets even better. Tony Hawk actually uploaded a video response to the FedEx driver on his channel, and it was literally the first TikTok that this pro skater has made in 2 years. And he basically thanked him for connecting him with his younger fans. And he sent a private message with his home address to him so he could mail the skateboard. And Tony said he would also be mailing several new skateboards over to Cooper and his family in return. Pretty cool. So Cooper and his 9-year-old brother Tucker are both huge avid skateboarders because their father, Robbie Morgan, started skating with his own younger brother when they were children. So it's kind of just been a family thing for so long. And he says that when he and the kids receive a package containing 3 new skateboards from Tony Hawk, they were just absolutely astonished and happy and excited, full of joy. He says, "We both idolize Tony Hawk. A lot of kids get into skateboarding because of him. So this is a childhood dream of mine." Seeing the look of joy on their faces when they saw the video and then when they got the package, it's just been so surreal. Later, though, the FedEx driver published a video to his channel of Cooper and Tucker thanking Tony Hawk for the gift, and the delivery driver also made sure to thank the pro skater for helping to coordinate such a sweet exchange. The FedEx driver, he says, "I had low expectations. I was hopeful, but I just thought the celebrities went swimming in their money and looked in the mirror all day. I don't know what they do, but not Tony Hawk. He's a special guy." I love it when, those celebrities reach out to, just little kids and fans like that, especially when you haven't heard from them in a while. This is Tony Hawk's first TikTok in 2 years. But leave it to social media. You can just tag people and things these days, and it makes it so much easier for people to get celebrities and other people to view these videos. It's so possible with all the connections that we have, of course, through the internet. Now I just wanted to share a quick story about a hairstylist who was really struggling to make ends meet during COVID-19. A lot of salons were, of course, shut down. She's 32 years old, and her name is Alyssa, and she's a stylist at Floyd's Barbershop at the University of Denver. She's just been struggling to make ends meet in the salon because of the closings and the lockdowns and all of that. But she got surprised with a pretty amazing tip from a walk-in customer that basically surprised her and her co-workers with this hefty tip. So a lot of her regular customers had been sending her different payments and stuff to support her during the closures. She's a single mother, and she was forced to negotiate special arrangements for the rent and utility bills at her home in Colorado. So since this barbershop recently just started to reopen to the public, they have strict sanitary and social distancing guidelines, but she was able to finally return back to work just earlier this month. So she was finishing up a busy day on a Saturday when a man walked in for a haircut. So she trimmed his hair, and they just chatted about baseball, Colorado, the difficulties of making it through quarantine. And she finished her job and started to sweep the floors, and the man settled his bill with the receptionist. And before he left, he made a puzzling parting comment. She says, "Just so you know, it's not a mistake." And he walked out. So minutes later, the salon receptionist was in tears, ran over to her station and told her that the man tipped her $2,500. So not only that, he had given $500 to receptionist, $1,000 to the general manager, and $1,800 to be divided amongst the shop's 18 employees. Absolutely amazing. So altogether, it was a $5,800 tip that was spread out. She says, "I cried. I'm a single mother. It's been rough the last few months, and not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing when we might reopen so I could go back to work. And this has just brought so much happiness and joy." So they wanted to share this heartwarming story with just different news outlets to try to, praise his gratitude to this anonymous person who really did, go above and beyond, and just thank the communities for always supporting and making sure everyone's, still together during this difficult time. But that is all the stories I have for right now. I'm going to take a short little break, and when we get back, I'll be back with more feel-good, positive stories to share with you. So stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. We are back, and I'm back with some more feel-good, positive stories. So let's just jump right back into it. All right, so my next story I want to share with you is It's pretty cool. It's about California. California will soon be the home to one of the largest trash-to-hydrogen power plant in the world. What does that mean exactly? So it's basically the world's largest green hydrogen plant. And it's going to be turning California's trash into ultra cheap fuel. Pretty cool, I have to say. So I guess the Super Green Hydro is launching the plant in partnership with the city of Lancaster. It's going to be processing 42,000 tons of solid waste into hydrogen energy around the start of 2021. So they say, we are the only company in the world delivering green hydrogen that is cost competitive with the cheapest, dirtiest hydrogen made from coal and gas and much less expensive than other green hydrogen. Our technology can scale quickly and produce fuel 24/7 year-round. Pretty interesting. That was the CEO, Dr. Robert. He says, so operating 24 hours a day for 7 days a week, this Lancaster plant will produce 24,000 pounds of hydrogen per day. So this makes them 3 times bigger than any other hydrogen energy plant. It's a source which they describe as being the missing link to a decarbonized world. So SGH2 have created a system where basically the oxygen-rich gas is fed into a chamber containing a plasma torch that heats the inserted trash component past 3,500 degrees Celsius. Then this rapid change of state from solid to liquid to gas and finally to plasma separates the hydrogen atoms from the hydrocarbon molecules, which is then used for energy. The high heat also removes any tar or particles that can sometimes be produced as byproducts. So Lawrence Berkeley National Lab performed a life cycle carbon analysis of the hydrogen produced this way, and they basically found that every ton of hydrogen produced, the technology mitigated 23 to 31 tons of carbon dioxide. So that's 13 to 19 tons more carbon dioxide avoided than any other green hydrogen processes, which rely on electrolysis and renewable energy. So originally they designed the deal with medical waste, and the SGH2's plasma technology can be used to reduce waste of most kinds, anything that is a problem for landfills, while also containing hydrogen atoms in fair game. So it's a lot of science, but it's a lot of good positive science. On the SGH2 website, it says, our process extracts all carbon from the waste, removes all particles and acid gases, and produces no toxins or pollution. The end result is high purity hydrogen and a small amount of biogenic carbon dioxide, which is not additive to greenhouse gas emissions. So as a result of production costs, this is based on current U.S. costs, they're projected to be about $2 per 2 pounds of green hydrogen. Brown hydrogen, the cheapest form of hydrogen that accounts for about 30% of all hydrogen energy, is produced from a process of coal gasification at about the same cost, though it varies kind of depending on the country, of course. But finally, the design of the technology allows it to be scalable to any size operation while using less land and requiring less capital to build than the current green hydrogen plants, relying on wind farms or solar panels to generate power for electrolysis. So there's some pretty cool videos and more information about this. It's a lot of science, like I said, but if you do head over to the SGH2 website, if you want to learn some more, then you can definitely check that out. They have a bunch of information, a lot of cool things to learn, and a lot of cool things to come to get excited about a greener and healthier environment for everybody. Now, I thought I would talk about a pretty cool self-cleaning electric mask. It can power itself with a phone charger, and it's gonna most likely only cost $1 a piece. So Israel researchers have come up with a brilliant new prototype. It's a self-cleaning face mask. It can kill pathogens such as COVID-19. It's simply by drawing power from a smartphone charger. So the scientists from Technion Faculty of Materials Science and Engineering in Haifa, one of Israel's leading scientific research institutions, English today, they say that the mask can use an electrical current from any standard 2-amp mobile phone charger to heat up a carbon fiber layer inside the mask and kill off any dangerous viruses that may have accumulated on its surface. So since announcing the success of this mask, this device, I guess they're calling it, researchers have already filed a patient application for the mask with the aim of making it commercially available in the United States for just $1. With all that being said, the team has not yet commented on whether the mask will be made available in Europe or some other places, but it is coming to the US and you could buy it for $1. A self-cleaning mask. Pretty incredible. They're hoping that this can help, for single-use personal protective equipment and, can help with all the generated waste by the disposable face mask that's going to be happening and that has already been happening. Of course, we've had some shortages as well. So this is just kind of a new, very innovative way to help keep everybody safe and at a very affordable cost. So it's basically, they're really set up to relieve the mask shortages in the U.S. regions that especially have been hit hardest by the coronavirus. So stay tuned for that. Once again, if you want to go check that out online, the image of it, it's kind of weird, but it's literally just your iPhone charger hooked up to it and it's a self-cleaning mask. I do have to say it is not the prettiest thing I've ever seen. Ever since, we've had a couple months of the pandemic, I've seen some pretty interesting face masks come out. Some stylish things. It's kind of becoming part of fashion now. But anyways, this thing is definitely not your best fashion statement, but it will definitely keep you safe, and that is what's most important. So don't shy away from it just because you might not think it's the prettiest thing ever. I just think it's super cool. Now, I want to talk about something for you animal lovers out there. The world's most endangered primate population triples after 17 years of careful conservation. So, a brighter future is ahead with the critically endangered Hainan gibbons of Hainan Island, thanks to decades of steady conservation work. So it's a small tropical island off the coast of China. It is the only place where this charismatic primate is found. Their numbers have increased from just 10 individuals in 1970 to 30 individuals in 2020. So this progress has been slow due to limited quality habitat and a slow rate of birth inherent in the species. But things have improved dramatically from the conservation project since it began back in 2003. And 13 wild gibbons were left on the island living in 2 family groups. Now the male's fur is jet black with white cheek patches, and then the female's is flush bright orange when they reach maturity. Their small little faces and curious eyes make for a very soft little gaze down that they give you. They're quite an adorable animal, I have to say, and you can find them in the top of treetops if you ever find your way to the small island off of China. But they are really intelligent animals, and when they look at you, I guess it feels like they're trying to communicate. This is what Philip Lo Yi-Ki-Fu told South China Morning Post. He is the senior conservation officer at the Conservation China, the Kadoorie Conservation China, which has been the driving force behind this conservation project. I'm really having trouble with English today. But in 2016, a tourist website called Tropical Hainan claimed that this gibbon was the world's most rarest mammal and that it survived this long only due to a spooky tale wherein one-of-a-day hunter shot one of the last few gibbons on the island and his whole family died of a mysterious disease. After this, hunting gibbons was believed to be unlucky. So whether you believe that creepy story or you're just excited that there is more of these cute animals going to be roaming around our earth, I thought this story was pretty fun to share with you. But it is time for another break. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to be back with more feel-good stories like always, so stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. Okay, this next story I'm going to share with you made me laugh. So I hope it makes you laugh because it is about the Detroit mower gang. Yes, you heard that correctly. Volunteers have been competing to maintain city's oldest parks, literally by mowing lawns. I'm not even kidding. It's pretty cool. So, it is a 12-hour competition called the Motown Mowdown, and the grand champion belt is awarded to whichever volunteer mows the most grass on Detroit's public playgrounds and parks during this 12-hour competition. Isn't that funny? I thought it was funny. So it's the Detroit mower gang. It's a group of volunteers. They're basically just grass cutters, and they call themselves playground repairmen, and they begin their annual mow-a-thon. They did it on May 16th at the Hamburg Play Field, an abandoned collection of sports fields, swing sets, and meadows on the city's west side. So they say no one owns this particular park. It just fell through the cracks. So Tom Norden, he is 50 years old. He's a part of the Detroit mower gang. He started it back in 2009. He says no one owns this particular park. It just fell through the cracks, and we just try to keep it alive. Without a group, you couldn't mow this park with a mower in fewer than a couple of days. It is quite the park. So basically a decade ago, the city was close to filing bankruptcy, and City Hall announced that the 300 parks in Detroit, that they only had funding to care for 72 of them. So that year, he decided to purchase a lawn tractor on Craigslist, and he took it to a park on 8 Mile Road. He started a Facebook group to see if any of his neighbors would want to volunteer their time to help mow with him, and it just kind of became very heartwarming, really positive history since then. So at Hamburg Playfield, just last Saturday, the gang members repaired broken swing sets and mowed the fields before splitting up to tackle 10 other abandoned playgrounds and parks. So the 28-year-old Hannah Vanacote, she is the defending, undisputed Motown champion of the world. She arrived with her Dixie chopper with her husband Gage for their 4th year with the gang. She says the reaction from people when they see what we've done is always so special. Sometimes the grass is so tall, kids can't even get into it. And then they smile on their faces as we leave. It's such a great accomplishment. So the work of this Detroit mower gang has allowed the city to slowly catch up to its park workload. And so that last year they formed a nonprofit called Enemies of Debris, and they hosted a trash fishing event where volunteers pulled trash out of the Detroit River with their fishing rods. So as, you know, it's quite hard work, but they said that, you know, they hope that the City Hall will one day put him and his gang out of business. Says we could start a bowling league or something if that has to come to terms. But I just thought that was a kind of a cool, funny, unique story. The Detroit Mower Gang, and they're just volunteers wanting to help keep the parks available to everybody. So I thought it was cute. My next story is about the Young Parents Project, and it went from an in-home to an online. So during the COVID-19 shutdown, Barbara White knew that her staff at the Young Parents Project was about to lose one of its most powerful tools. So of course, you know, it assists, basically the Young Parents Program assists pregnant teens, young mothers, and their children involved in juvenile justice systems in Miami-Dade, Broward, Leon, and Gadsden counties. So YPP is part of the Florida State's University Center for Prevention and Early Intervention and is funded by the state's Department of Juvenile Justice. Amongst all the host of vital services, this program also helps provide access to prenatal and medical care, child care, education, computers, Wi-Fi, and basics just like food and diapers. So it basically just determines the needs and the well-being of pregnant teens, babies, and young moms. And then the YPP staff have traditionally just relied heavily on face-to-face visits with these individuals. But of course, COVID-19 has changed that completely and immediately, right, with all the shutdowns. So, you know, of course, like lots of other social service agencies, this program, you know, it kind of up and ended. So they wanted to make a total shift as quickly as they can. So they decided that, they said on the Friday, we learned that we couldn't meet in person anymore. By Monday, we found a whole new way of thinking to keep things going. We are a relationship-based program. We are used to outreach, to talking to families. So this has been much harder because we can't get out there and do that work. Being in person allows the YPP staff to observe an environment, completely, you know, in its whole, to use their experience and intuition and identify potential issues to those that might, you know, serve to being reluctant to talk about. So the director of the Center for Prevention and Early Intervention, Mimi Graham, said it's tough to overestimate the value of the in-home visit to YPP staff, especially in an environment where people are forced to be in their homes and crimes like abuse and family violence have increased. So they say a lot of what they see is domestic violence, and a lot of domestic violence is about isolation, lack of empowerment, lack of control. So for our visitors to have eyes on families is really important. We're doing virtual visits, staying in touch with them that way, and that way you see them, make sure they look okay, and that the baby is okay. So, you know, COVID-19 has shined quite a bit of light actually on the YPP services. Like they said, there has been an increase in some domestic violence. So it's shined light on them and actually kept them quite busy with things. But they're just thankful that they're able to still do their job during this time and just kind of had to adjust. So I thought I'd share that and say that that is still happening, and it's just cool to see different businesses and nonprofit organizations be able to switch what they're doing and continue providing the very essential services that they do provide. So they say that they definitely miss, you know, being in contact with people like we all do, but they're doing their best to make sure that they're keeping everyone safe, and they just had that quick switch, you know, in the first couple days, and they've continued to follow through with that and still be able to maintain their business and help many individuals during this time. And for my last story, I thought that I would share with you a cool story about a church who helped pay off $4 million in medical bills amid the coronavirus. So Bedford, Brooklyn, a Med-Stu church helped erase $4 million of medical debt for 4,500 people. And this is all thanks to their pennies on the dollar investment. So the Concord Baptist Church of Christ put forward $3,500 to RIP Medical Debt. And RIP Medical Debt is a nonprofit organization that basically forgives medical debts, and they help out basically. So the RIP Medical Debt then use that money to buy a multi-million-dollar portfolio of medical debts at a discount. And then together, the church and the nonprofit helped wipe out medical debt for 4,500 people in Brooklyn and New Jersey. So that's just next week. They're going to be receiving yellow envelopes in the mail telling them that they're newly debt-free, which is probably the best news that you could receive during a pandemic, I have to say. This is not forgiveness of a debt. This is freedom from a debt. So the Concord Baptist Christ Fund has made an annual donations to social causes from interest gathered on an initial $1 million seed that was back in 1988. But they said the church actually decided to focus on healthcare costs before the coronavirus pandemic. And the coronavirus crisis only reinforced why the church focused on medical debts. They said they can be, a second trauma on top of coronavirus or any alignment itself. So this year we targeted on medical debt because we wanted to show the need for affordable health care. So wiping out medical debt can be crushing for an individual, and there's a lot of ways companies and there's a lot of nonprofits that are able to help out if you're able to or you're lucky enough. But the RIP Medical Debt was really, really great. So if you ever want to check out that nonprofit organization, I've heard a lot of great things about RIP Medical Debt and just the things that they have done with different churches to help wipe out the medical debt for so many people. But medical debts are often, bundled together in portfolios that sometimes, they're less than reputable companies that can buy at discounts for their own profits. So he said that a debt buying company purchased $60,000 worth of medical debts, and instead of collecting on the money, they gave it over to RIP Medical Debt. And that's how he was able to forgive $9 million in medical debt. So the discounts debts RIP Medical Debt purchased on behalf of Concord Baptist came out to $1 donated to $114 of medical debt, which then in conclusion comes to the $4 million in total. So there was about $1,700 per Brooklyn person and about $700 per New Jersey individual. And so they hope that they can continue to do this and just bring some smiles and positivities when those people open up those yellow envelopes and see that their medical debt has been erased, especially during a time like this. That would just be great mail to receive. But that is all the positive feel-good stories that I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Like I said, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. I look forward to sharing more with you next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.